Hey guys, it's Miss Keenum again, and we are going to do the second part of line plots. Today, we're looking at interpreting data from the line plots. If you missed part one, introduction to line plots, which basically just covered how to construct a line plot and what line plots are, you may want to go back and look at that recording if you need to. If not, we'll just continue with part two. So we use line plots and various other graphs to interpret data. As you can see on the top left, we have a pie chart that we're using to look, or somebody has created to look at how med students spend their time. So we can look at this pie chart to determine how much time, if there was a lot of time spent, let's see, right here, a lot of time spent sleeping, eating, and bathing, and just a little bit of time washing hands. So we can look at that pie chart as a visual, like we talked about yesterday, to see how much time med students spend doing what. And then over here on the right side, it's students' favorite color, and we've used a bar graph to represent how many students' favorite color was red, blue, green, black, and pink. Okay, so just like we use these graphs to interpret data, we can also use a line plot to interpret data. So like we talked about in the last video, line plots show frequency or how often something occurs. That's what frequency is, how often something occurs. So let's get started. So this line plot shows the various lengths of caterpillars in inches from a caterpillar collection. So you can look at all the X's or points we have representing our data set that was given in the last video. This is the same graph. Our data set, you can see what each point represents. And so now we're going to interpret the data off the line plot or from the line plot. So my first question is, how many caterpillars measured 2 inches? So see if you can figure that out. Okay, so how we're going to do that is we're going to go to our 2 and we're going to look at that. So above the 2, I have 1, 2, 3, 4 X's or 4 marks. So that means I had 4 caterpillars that measured 2 inches. So there's our answer. So how many caterpillars measured 3 inches? So once again, I'm going to go to my line plot. I'm going to look at the number 3, find the number 3. I do not have any marks above the number 3. That means 0 caterpillars measured 3 inches. Okay, my next question. How many caterpillars measured more than 4 inches? So more than is an important term right there, keyword right there. So I'm going to go to my line plot and I have a 4. But these 2 caterpillars measured right at 4 inches. They didn't measure more than 4 inches. That means I have to go to the next, everything to the right of the 4, which on this line plot is 5 and 6. So I count the number of caterpillars essentially that measured 5 and 6 inches. That's more than 4. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4. So I had 4 caterpillars that measured more than 4 inches. Okay, the next question. How many caterpillars measured less than 2 inches? So this is just the reverse of what we did. Less than 2 inches. So I'm not looking at how many caterpillars measured 2 inches, but how many caterpillars measured less than 2 inches. So I'm looking at everything to the left of the 2 on this line plot. It's the numbers 0 and 1. No caterpillars measured 1 inch, but 2 caterpillars measured 0 inches, which means they just measured less than 1 inch. So 2, there we go. So did more caterpillars measure 5 inches or 6 inches? So once again, this is where we're really looking at frequency. I have how many caterpillars measured 5 inches? 1, 2, 3. How many caterpillars measured 6 inches? 1. So which one had more? 5 or 6? 5. More caterpillars measured 5 inches. Okay, we have one more, or we're going to have 2 more examples. So our second example says the line plot below shows the number of miles each team member ran yesterday. Okay. So my first question, how many members are on the team? So what I do is I'm just going to count every mark that I have on my line plot, and that's going to show me how many members were on the team and how many runs I recorded. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So I have 12 members on the team. Okay, my next question. How many members ran at least 2 miles? So my key word here is at least. So that is going to mean they ran 2 miles or more. So see if you can figure that out. How many members ran at least 2 miles, or we could reword it to say 2 miles or more. Okay, right, so 4 team members ran at least 2 miles, or 2 miles or 4. So we look at our 2, 2.5, and 3. So we look at 2 and everything to the right. So 4 is the answer. So the next question, did more members run 1 mile exactly or 2 miles exactly? So see if you can figure that out. Did more team members run 1 mile exactly or 2 miles exactly? So I have 1, 2, 3, 4 team members that ran 1 mile, 1, 2 team members that ran 2 miles. So more team members ran 1 mile. So how many members ran 1 mile? We just said the answer here, so see if you can figure it out. Okay, so 4 team members ran 1 mile. I go to my 1 on my line plot and I count every mark above the 1, which gives me 4. Okay, so how many members ran more than 2.5 miles? So I don't want to know how many team members ran 2.5 miles or less, but I want to know how many team members ran more than 2.5 miles. So I look at everything to the right, my 2.5 on this line plot, it's just 3 miles, and I have 1 runner that ran 3 miles. So that's my answer. Okay, so our last example for today shows or reads the line plot below shows the cups of cereal each student ate for breakfast. Okay, so my first question, how many cups of cereal was eaten by the most students? So essentially, which number has the most marks above it? That's going to show the frequency or the greatest number of students that ate it. So the answer would be, we look here and we find 3 X's here. That's the most marks above a number, and it's above 2.5. So the answer is 2.5 cups. How many cups of cereal was eaten by the most students? 2.5 cups was eaten by the most students. Our next question, did more students eat Honey Nut Cheerios or Fruit Loops? That's kind of a trick question. We don't know that answer. Line plots don't tell us that. They're just telling us literally how much cereal was eaten, not what kind of cereal was eaten. So our next question, how many students ate 3 cups of cereal? So you figure it out. What's the first thing I'm going to do? Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is find my 3. I'm looking for how many students ate 3 cups of cereal. I have 1 mark, so 1 student ate 3 cups of cereal. Next question, did more students eat 2.5 cups of cereal or 2 cups of cereal? So I'm going to go to my 2.5. I'm going to read it, count the marks above it, 1, 2, 3. Students ate 2.5 cups. And then I go to my 2 cups of cereal, and 1, 2 students ate 2.5 cups. So which one was more? 2.5 cups with 3 students. Okay. Lastly, what was the smallest amount of cereal eaten? So to determine that, I go to my line plot. I look for the smallest number I have with X's above it. So the smallest number I had was 0, but I have no X's. And then it was 1/4, but once again, I have no X's. So the smallest amount of cereal that somebody actually ate, and it was 1 student that ate it, was a 1/2 cup of cereal. So that's my answer, 1/2 cup. Okay, so I have an assignment for y'all that should be fun, but I want you to go on a scavenger hunt and find a pencil, a pen, a crayon, a piece of paper, a phone, a leaf, a blade of grass, and a stick. And then I want you to measure each of those items to the nearest 1/4 of an inch. So you will need to find a ruler in addition to all these items so you can measure it. Once you've done that, plot them on the line plot. So you're going to make a line plot and you're going to make it in 1/4 inches to the highest thing that you find. And so like we look at this, and the shortest thing I'm going to have on here could be a crayon, which is probably about 3 inches. So you can start your line plot at 3 inches and then label it every 1/4 inch to your longest item. So a pencil, that might be about 7 or 8 inches or less, depending on how much it's been sharpened. And then once you get your line plot written, answer these questions below. Which item measured to be the longest? Number 2, which item measured to be the shortest? Number 3, did more than one item measure the same length? And then number 4, which length had the most items? So maybe this will be something fun to get you outside. You don't even have to write this on a sheet of paper. If you have chalk and want to go write it on your driveway, or somehow write it in the mud outside, it's raining right now, you could do that. That'd be a fun way to do this and get outside at the same time. Okay, so here's some links below, like yesterday or like part 1, where you can look a worksheet to practice line plots and gathering information or interpreting data from line plots. And then you can also check out that video again. It's the same video from Khan Academy that describes line plots more in depth. But I hope this helps, and I will see you back later with part 3 of line plots.